What's up, guys? Heatfireash here. This is the team that I've been using in my last couple battles, and a couple people have been asking me about specific spreads and EVs and all that. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna jump into Showdown, and I'm gonna go over each Pokemon and explain to you why I chose it and basically give you a rundown of the team. Let's get into it. Okay, first Pokemon on the team is Incineroar, which we're using the Agave Berry for that nice recovery because he does not have access to recovery any other way. And for the EVs here, we can see we're going with a very tanky build. And this is different than the first kind of EV build I had for Incineroar, and I decided to do this one to be a little more defensive. So 236 HP, 4 in attack, 132 defense, 116 special defense, and 20 speed with a impish nature. And what this lets us do is just really tank up those physical hits, like massively. Like Incineroar is such a tank with all these EVs, and also the special defense, he's not too bad on that end either. And a little bit of speed is going to let us outspeed opposing Incineroar if they only have no speed investment or very little. So that's pretty nice to get our Fake Out off first. And for the attacks, pretty standard Fake Out. Snarl, I decided to go with Snarl over Darkest Lariat because I basically just wanted to have the ability to also knock down those special attackers as well. And usually, obviously with Intimidate, we're kind of focused more on physical, but I wanted to have just that option of getting that Snarl off. Flare Blitz is our main damaging move. Still hits really hard, even with only the 4 attack. You do have to worry about the recoil damage, but with the Agave Berry, sometimes you can recoil and get that recovery, which is nice. And then honestly, Parting Shot, which is a new attack for it, is awesome. You get to switch out, and it lowers your opponent's special attack and attack by 1. So that's a really nice move that you can do. Overall, Incineroar probably underperformed me because I think everyone was kind of just ready for it, and they knew it was going to be so popular, so they were putting counters on every team. So it's still a great Pokemon. It's just, I definitely don't think it's as crazy as everyone thought it was going to be. Okay, next up is Whimsicott. And I have the Babbery Berry on Whimsicott because I'm using Focus Sash on Gengar, so I couldn't use Focus Sash on Whimsicott. Otherwise, I would. Another option here could be like Expert Belt, but I wanted Whimsicott to have the opportunity to live. So that's why we're a little different there. And for spread, once again, it's just the basic 4 HP, 252 special attack, 252 speed with a timid nature. For Dax, we're going with Moonblast, which is pretty obvious, just main stab move, good against stuff like Dragapult as well. Tailwind is ridiculous with Prankster. And Fake Tears is kind of the main attack we're focusing on here, because often we're going to be leading Whimsicott Togekiss, and we just go for a Fake Tears, lower the opponent's special defense by 2, and then hit him with a Dynamax attack from Togekiss. Deals a ton of damage. And then lastly, we have Tickle here, which is kind of like a mini Fake Tears for physical. But instead of lowering defense by 2, it actually just lowers it by 1, but also lowers their attack by 1. So you can also use it as like a small Intimidate if you want, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I've used it a couple times. It works pretty well. So yeah, pretty standard Whimsicott besides maybe the Tickle, but it's a great supportive Pokemon. Then moving on to Togekiss is basically our first main attacker, our main lead we go for, which is also another speed boosting Pokemon we have. And we are Super Luck Scope Lens Togekiss here. We're just going for all the crits as we can, and basically you can get some KOs where you otherwise wouldn't with this build. And honestly, it's just pretty fun. I don't know if it's the best build, but it's fun and I enjoy it, and that's why I decided to go with that build. And we are 4 HP, 252 special attack, 252 speed with a timid nature. So this is a max damage, but as you'll see, Togekiss already in Dynamax form tanks a lot of stuff even without extra defense. So I found that most of the time I didn't need it unless I was going to get one hit KO'd by a very strong max Steel Strike. Most of the time I can tank at least one hit of anything else. So still going with Follow Me here because it's just a crazy powerful move and you never know when you might need it. Also acts as max guard in Dynamax form, which is great. Then we got Air Slash, which is very important. Not only is it stab, but it's also going to be able to boost our speed once we Dynamax, which is awesome. Dazzling Gleam, another stab move, very powerful against dragon types and such. And there's a bunch of fighting types right now too, so good against that. And then lastly, Heat Wave, which is also, I've used it a couple times like reset weather, which has been great. And also Gets rid of those steel types, which can be a problem, especially for this Togekiss, because we're not defensive at all. And yeah, it's worked out great. I really like this moveset. At the moment, I wouldn't change it. So yeah, just super offensive Togekiss here. And for a new Pokemon I have not used yet this season is Gengar. Gengar is probably my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon, so I always like trying to find a team with it. But we are running Focus Sash on it because it has no defense, so it's pretty frail. But we're going with 4 HP, 252 special attack, 252 speed with a timid nature, so another very fast Pokemon here. And then the first one, which is a little different here, is Sludge Wave. And we're basically running this because of Fishsharp. We're able to put out that Sludge Wave where it normally would also hit your teammate. With Fishsharp, it's immune. So you can just go for Sludge Waves. And obviously, it's good against all the fairy types like Togekiss, Grimmsnarl, all that stuff. You can just hit with a big Sludge Wave and deal lots of damage. Which is, yeah, honestly really cool. It's a great combo to get off. And then we have Shadow Ball, which is another stab move. He's going to hit super hard with just that single target Shadow Ball. And then we are also using Gengar as basically a Trick Room counter. So Trick Room and Imprison here. So you can just go for that Imprison if your opponent's leading hard Trick Room. Also, I've actually used Trick Room before to kind of switch speeds when my opponent goes for a Tailwind or something and I can't. You can actually go for that Trick Room and then be outspeeding them. So there's kind of some cool tricks you can do there. So yeah, definitely the Trick Room counter, but also good damage and stuff and can be used in other situations as well. And next up, we have Fishsharp, which is a Pokemon I really wanted to try out and basically was my sort of Incineroar counter on this team. So we have the Assault Vest and also the Defiant ability. If you don't know what Defiant does, its attack will be raised by 2 whenever its stat is lowered. So if they throw out Incineroar on this guy, we'll be at +1 attack, which is pretty crazy. And we are pretty defensive here. Not crazy defensive, but pretty. 100 HP, 252 attack, 4 defense, 84 special defense, and 68 speed with an adamant nature. So kind of focusing in on attack, we want to make sure we're dealing as much damage as possible. And then a little bit of HP with special defense. Obviously, we're Assault Vest, so it's going to help us live some attacks we wouldn't have before. And then the speed, honestly, is just going to help us outspeed some stuff when we're under Tailwind. It's not going to be outspeeding too much without that. But as you'll see, we do have a priority move in Sucker Punch. So most of the time, we're going to be doing that if we're not Dynamax, so we don't have to worry about outspeeding all the time. Of course, Iron Head for that stab. Steel type is going to be dealing crazy amounts of damage, especially if we do Dynamax. We hit pretty hard in Dynamax. Sucker Punch, obviously, like I said, priority move is awesome. Brick Break, it's kind of the only good fighting move we get, but it can also be used to destroy screens, which obviously with G-Max Lapras right now, being able to destroy screens is pretty great. You do have to be worried about the weakness policy on Lapras, but either way. Also in Dynamax, boosting our attack even more is a great option. And then lastly, Stone Edge, which might seem weird, but the thing is, if we Dynamax and go for the Stone Edge, we can just one-shot Incineroar after we have that +1 boost. So yeah, Stone Edge is awesome. I've also used it, even with the 80 accuracy, I've used it a couple times out of Dynamax, and it still works really well. Not to mention, we are a Steel type, so if we do the max Rockfall, we won't get hit by the Sandstorm damage because we're Steel. So yeah, overall, I like Fishsharp. I think it's really good. The only thing you have to be worried about is the 4x weakness to fighting, which makes it really hard to bring if there's a fighting type on the opponent's team. So got to be aware of that. It's definitely a downside of the Pokemon, but overall, I do like it, and obviously it combos with Gengar really well. And then lastly, to kind of finish off the team here, we never really had anything to deal with Gastrodon. Gastrodon was just a huge problem for this team, and then also water types in general were pretty hard for this team. Didn't really have anything good to deal with them, so that's why I decided Rotom Mow, which kind of just fits that last slot perfectly. So we are going with the Citrus Berry here, good recovery for it. And then for our EVs, we are going with 236 HP, 20 special attack, 252 speed, and a timid nature. So we're going with a fast Balkymon with only a little bit of attack, but honestly, with 105 base special, and sometimes we can Dynamax and such. And then don't forget, we have Whimsicott with Fake Tears. We can honestly deal a lot of damage with Rotom. So we are going with Leaf Storm, obviously, for that grass attack. It does the job. Basically, it's going to one-shot your Gastrodons for you, which is the main reason you're going to be using that. Otherwise, you're going to go with Thunderbolt, good stab, You guys know what Thunderbolt does. And then Will-O-Wisp, obviously burning opponents is really nice to have on a team. And then lastly, Protect. As you can see, we basically have like no Protects on this team. It's just this, and then obviously, you know, Dynamaxing, we have some options for Protects in Togekiss with the Follow Me, but yeah, not many Protects on this team, so you do have to be careful about that, but I definitely wanted it on Rotom, and I think it pairs really nicely. So now, just to go over a couple leads that you can do with this team, depending. So the main one is going to be a Whimsicott and Togekiss lead, where you're usually going to go for a Fake Tears, and then you'll Dynamax Togekiss, and then just attack into whatever slot you want. And it's going to knock out most things if they're not super bulky, and if they don't Dynamax, because that Fake Tears just lowering their special defense. You hit so hard, especially if you crit. I mean, if you crit, it's just crazy. So that's one lead you can go with. Another lead you can go with, like Incineroar, Fishsharp, or something, or even Incineroar or Togekiss. If you think your opponent's going to have a really strong physical lead that they're going to try to buff up, that can be really good. Just get that Intimidate off and go for Fake Out support, stuff like that. That's another option. And then, of course, you can always go Gengar, Fishsharp, especially Gengar if you're worried about Trick Room, like I said before. But also, Fishsharp can be a great lead if you think your opponent's going to go with Incineroar. You can go Gengar, Fishsharp against their Incineroar. They can't Fake Out Gengar, and then you're going to Dynamax the Fishsharp here, which they also can't Fake Out. And get a flinch on. So that's a really good strategy if you think your opponent's going to lead Incineroar. Anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of this overview of the team. Don't forget, I will have the rental code as well as the paste in the description, so you guys can take it out on ladder or on showdown, however you want to try out the team. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.